In this video, I'm going to give my insight on the basics of personal finance and very easy to follow instructions on how you can become wealthy. It is likely even simpler than you think. I'll start by sharing a little bit about my background. I think this is important because certain ideas and beliefs, both positive and negative, are ingrained in us from an early age. Everyone starts at a different place. We all start with a different box of tools and beliefs. It's extremely important to recognize what beliefs you hold and identify whether they are helping you or holding you back. Here's what I learned growing up. I was incredibly lucky to grow up in a stable family that lived in a stable country. To this day, those two advantages that were completely out of my control have been one of the biggest contributors to any success I have achieved. My parents, and especially my grandparents, taught me to have a strong work ethic and give 100% to any work you do. Some of this was taught directly, while some was taught by example. My father worked incredibly hard for our family and rarely complained about his work. My parents also reinforced the lesson of having a good work ethic by making me and my brothers their personal cleaners, landscapers, and day laborers. Anytime there was something that needed to be done, we were forced to do it. It's a simple thing, and obviously I did not enjoy this at the time, but it taught me to work hard and that no job was beneath me. Another valuable lesson I learned growing up was to live within your means. My parents were candid about money and taught me how some people live beyond their means and the consequences that doing so could bring. They scared me half to death about credit card debt ruining people's lives, and it worked. I got my first credit card when I was 16. Outside of one small lapse in making a payment early on, which absolutely terrified me, I've never missed a payment since. I can still remember the interest from that missed payment. It was about $6, a small fortune at the time. They also taught me the importance of saving my money and helped set up a bank account for me when I was still a child. I took to saving aggressively very early. I quickly made the connection that to get things I wanted in life, I had to have the money to obtain them. I could see that money also equaled freedom. The freedom to get what you want when you wanted was never going to be possible without saving. My parents were also great examples for managing lifestyle creep. As income grows, they had their moments where they were unnecessarily cheap, but they chose to live a very modest lifestyle when their income could have supported more. The stability my family provided and the lessons they taught were very beneficial to me and gave me such a strong advantage in life, but not everything I learned from them was helpful for building wealth. I also learned some limiting beliefs that have held me back. I was taught that debt is bad, it'll ruin your life, and should be avoided at all costs. There is no difference between good and bad debt. The lessons, when applied to credit cards, are a good lesson, but the same sentiment was taught to me about mortgages. Mortgages were a necessary evil to be paid off as quickly as possible, and if you were not careful and messed up, the bank would come and take your home. This is not necessarily wrong or bad information, but there was no education around the benefits of mortgages, like the leverage they gave you, and the home was just something you lived in, not something that could generate wealth. Although my parents invested mainly for retirement, it was rarely discussed in any detail. My knowledge of investing was that it was something you did so you don't end up in the streets when you retire. I had a brief crash course on stocks when I was a teenager. I bought shares in a single high risk company that collapsed. That turned me off trading stocks for years. I think I even had paper shares mailed to me at one point. I can't even imagine what the financial fees on this transaction must have been. I also did not have any entrepreneurs in my family or extended family. I grew up thinking the only way to make money was to get a job and trade your time for money. This left me with many things that I still had to learn on my own. There were plenty of financial concepts like investing I had to learn. I was able to learn about investing from books and websites, and once I got started, was able to figure it out. But it did delay me from starting to invest earlier. I also had very little knowledge about entrepreneurship. Luckily, I went to a college where it was encouraged and nurtured. I still have a lot to learn, but was able to get started at a young age. After moving to the United States, I had to relearn things I'd known about personal finance and taxes, like what a 401k was and how it worked. I was able to learn about the most common programs fairly quickly, but discovering other financial benefits unique to the United States, like an HSA, for example, took longer for me to discover and understand. Real estate investing is another area I had been steered away from. In many ways, I'm still in my infancy when it comes to real estate. I'm making progress, but have much to learn and need to gain more experience. So, how do you become wealthy? When you study quality personal finance content, you will eventually realize that the path to becoming wealthy is fairly straightforward. Work hard, grow your income, live within your means, save enough money for an emergency fund, keep some other savings for whatever you're into in big ticket items, then invest the rest. There's endless debate about the best way to invest, but for the vast majority of people, the best course of action would be to maximize any 401k match your employer offers. Then, depending on whether or not your investing goals are short or long term, you would utilize either a brokerage account or contribute to your Roth IRA. I did not include real estate in this because it's not necessary to become wealthy. I highly recommend buying a home if you can, but it's not a prerequisite for becoming wealthy. Whether you make 60K or over 100K, if you follow that advice, you will become wealthy. It really is that simple. But most people don't have the patience and discipline to execute on this plan. Even if you do have the discipline, needless to say, for most people, it's a long, slow path. I subscribe to this methodology and have seen it work personally. It has largely been how I was able to build my wealth. This really works, and if I continue to follow the formula, I will continue to build wealth. If I worked in my current job for another 15 years, I would be able to easily retire at age 55 as a mid-tier millionaire. A lot of financial advice just kind of ends there. There are variations on the wealth recipe I described above. Most financial advice is an endless debate about what size your emergency fund should be, whether or not you should max out your 401k, your Roth, or both, what type of bond is best, how you should invest your first 1k, 5k, 50k, 100k, when you should take Social Security, if there will be Social Security, who cares? Most of it is just endless rehashing and repackaging of what I was able to describe in several sentences earlier in this video. Take it from somebody who spent years going in circles chasing new personal finance content without gaining much additional knowledge that has had any material impact on my finances. Don't get lost in the details. The core principles can be learned by reading a couple books or with a couple days of research. This system works. It's slow and steady, but just about anybody with an average household income and the discipline to save and invest can make this work. Part 2 of this video will cover how to become rich. How do you move beyond the slow accumulation of wealth that guarantees you'll become wealthy and take things to the next level? How do you move past wealthy and become an ultra high net worth individual? That is what I will cover in my next video, where I outline the 3 principal areas to focus on. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss it. So, do you think I have successfully distilled down how to become wealthy into one sentence? Is there anything I missed? Maybe selling Herbalife? Let me know in the comments below.